in Sefer Yetzira, the first parak, the fourth Mishnah. And we're learning about the forces that are the original dress of the divine power. The divine power as it decided to become and eventually became us. And here we are trying to figure out how we got here. That divine power originally dressed up as 10 spheres and then 22 letters. And this is represented in the Tzelem Elohim. This is what we wear wherever we go. This is our uniform, the human body. This is how we know which infantry we belong to in the big army of beings that came forth from the unity. And so we carry our form, we carry the function of our organs, we carry our mind, the screen where we can see what is happening within our organs, if we know how to look. Or we can just see whatever we decided to imagine, if we choose to distract ourselves from what's really happening. But all this that we're carrying is screaming and yelling for our attention. This is more important than anything you can find outside of you, because this is the one that made you, that decided so. He's the only one that has access. It has his signature all over it. What's his signature? The things that no one else can do. That's his signature. Wherever you see something that no one else could do, you know who did it? He did it. Who's he? The one. You know the one. You know who we're talking about. He's me. He's you. He's the other one. Some remember, some forgot. Some are fighting with him, some are in the middle of an argument or a debate, some are making love to him. He, the one we're all dealing with all the time. He decided to dress us up in this uniform. He chose it very carefully. He decided on the details of it with an intelligence not very different than the intelligence that he placed inside of us. A very close relative decided our shape, our size, the different parts, the different functions, the numbers of all the different pieces and how they come together, and how they interact and all their relationships and what will happen if this and what will happen if that. The intelligence that decided all these important factors in your life also popped inside the machine once it puts itself together and it comes to the right development. And it can understand itself. Of course it can. Hey, how you doing? Now I feel you from the inside. Except the intelligence that popped into the machine, it has a period where it's adjusting to its environment. Oh, danger, danger, danger. The environment is now going to teach this intelligence things that are very, very distant from the intelligence that just popped in there. And then, when it becomes properly developed, or at least as close to it as it can get, it starts asking and saying, hey, this doesn't feel like me. I would never have done this. Oh, but you did. Of course you would have done this. You just don't remember what you were thinking when you done this. Of course you're committed to this project. You are this project. You're no different than the one who made you, except, oh, you heard some stories. And so when you say, I never would have done this, that's the I after the stories. It's disconnected from the nature of the design that knows itself. And so this intelligence that originally made the being and then dwells within the being, that's called the Holy Spirit. This is the one we are all searching for. This is the one that has been forgotten. That's why we're in exile. We're in exile because we don't know what these 32 forces are and how they are doing us. And this is because we've been distracted with other things. We've been obsessed with things other than the real, until we have forgotten the real. And when the child comes in, and the child is that, the child has the Holy Spirit that creates all the organs and all the body functions, and everything is working just right. It knows it all, it is it all, it's ready to be it all, and then it comes to a vulnerable environment where it's absorbing everything that's going on around it in order to know how to react to this environment. And another one got lost. Another one has forgotten. Another one is no longer with us. He's no longer with the truth. He's no longer attached to the desire that created him. Now there's going to be desires. What are the desires going to be? What do we, the ones in the environment, want from this child? But hey, isn't the child a divine intelligence? Isn't the child here in order to reveal its own intelligence? Do we know what that is? Do we even know what that is in ourselves before we go directing the child how to find itself? And so then we are creating desires within this child that are not aligned with the desire that's creating the child. And so when that child grows and develops, it finally becomes developed enough to question, and it asks, who am I? This makes no sense to me. Oh, it makes sense to you. It doesn't make sense to how you think, because you no longer think like you. You think like someone else. And so these forces are active within us, and they themselves include the intelligences that we use in order to interpret the environment. How do we know how to interpret the environment? It's these same forces that are in us, the intelligence that created us, the intelligence that popped into us. That intelligence eventually comes and is interpreting the information. Even right now, you can catch him while he's doing it, because I'm making noise, and boy, is he at work. Can you hear him at work? Very involved in this process. Very, very busy. A lot is happening. And so this is the intelligence at work, trying to interpret its situation, trying to remember itself, trying to know where to find the original desire, the Holy Spirit. And if we feed it the wrong information, if we create in it the wrong desires, then we are taking away from this intelligence. We are removing the being from its rightful owner. Who's the rightful owner? The Holy Spirit, the Spirit that created life. And so he says in the fourth Mishnah, Eser spheres blima, 10 spheres that have no interpretation, they have no meaning in our sense. As much as we'll know about them, we still can't know them because they are our essence. They are the ones that are thinking. They can't fully know themselves in their manifestations because they are all that potential and more. And so that's 10 spheres. These are the spiritual entities, the forces that represent the soul of the being. And so he says, Eser v'lo tesha, there is 10 and there isn't 9. What does it mean? It means it's not a philosophical assumption. It's not like we're going to take things that are really not distinct and we're going to give them distinctions in order to create a structure. No, these 10, they represent something very real. And where do we see this in our body? We see the fingers, the hands and the feet. We see the number 10, that it's a real number based on how we are designed to be. Whatever it is that's designing us has a relationship with 10. And so this 10, it's 10 and it's not 9. And in the level of the spheres, they say it means that you also count the keter, you count the first one, which is an undefinable urge. It's not yet even at the sphere of Chachma, where Chachma has some type of a definition. At the level of keter, there is just an urge, and yet we count it as one of the vessels the light goes through in order to become. And we also count the Malchus. The Malchus is the 10th that represents the manifested reality. So we don't say that there's only 9 actors, there's only 9 forces that are acting, and the 10th doesn't add anything, because all the 10th means is manifestation. And so he says, no, this is also counted as a vessel. This is also an interpretation of the divine, is that there can be a manifestation. This same essence, if it was still in light form, if it wasn't manifested, it would be a different vessel to receive the divine light. Manifestation itself adds something to the equation. It's counted separately. So that's Eser v'lo tesha. It's 10 spheres, it's not 9. And then Eser v'lo achadesre, it's 10 spheres, it's not 11. And so not 11 means that we don't count the source. Never in the Kabbalah are we referring to the source, to the one who created. The whole Kabbalah is only talking about the Creator. The whole Torah is here to teach us about the Creator, and nowhere in the Torah and nowhere in the Kabbalah are they ever teaching about the one who created. The one who created is beyond anything that we can approach. And this is why the philosophers would never reach the conclusions of the Kabbalists, because they didn't look for the same thing. What the philosopher was trying to prove, if you can find or you cannot find, the Kabbalist long knew that you cannot find and wasn't looking for. What was he looking for? Was the tools of creation that created this being. What are the revelations of that one as far as creating this being? And through being what he created to be the best, then I will give praise to the one who made it be. And so if I can be fully this being, this is the highest praise I can give to the one who made the being. If I somehow diminish the power of this being, if I somehow cause this being to have restricted access to itself and not to manifest its full potential, then I am limiting the glory of the one who created this being. And the same goes for the amount of manifestations. For example, on a very practical level, the commandment to have children is because it brings glory to the being, to reveal his glory. And the commandment not to kill comes from not restricting the glory of this being. This is at the very core of the entire relationship that we have with the source. This is the only way we can really interact with the source, is through this being. This being has very deep potentials, it can have perceptions that really bring it closer to the real desire of the source, to the real desire that gives it life. It was designed this way. It can have deeper and deeper sensitivities. The more it feels safe, the more it can reveal to itself its true nature and the potential that it has. And so everything that we are trying to do with this being is to bring glory to the one who made the being. How do we bring glory to the one who made the being? By being the best. By bringing out the best of this being, by bringing out its most divine potential. This is what brings praise, this is what brings glory, this is what we can give, if we can even call it that, to the source, to the one who desired. And so it's 10 and not 11. We don't count the one who desired. The one who desired is off limits. He's not mentioned anywhere. Any type of terminology, any type of letter, any type of symbol, any type of anything, we're already talking about the process of forming manifestation eventually. Only when there's a forming of manifestation can there be speech, can there be discussion, can there be access, can there be thinking, imagining, drawing, trying. The one who desired it to be so, he is blessed for eternity. He cannot be known by any form that is less than him, by any form that is restricted in any capacity, in time or in space, or entanglement to physical organs. He is the essence of all things, and he cannot be known by any of his things. He is the reason they all exist, and yet he cannot be known through any reason, or through any calculation, or through any understanding. And so he is not referred to. All the names that we have in the Torah, none of them are referring to him in his essence, in the way that he is, without anything that is resulting in us being and creation happening. All the names are referring to different aspects of him as creation is becoming, as creation is coming out into existence. And so all these names are referring to the 10, but there is no 11. We don't count 11. Then he says, Hovein b'chochma, v'chacham b'bina. Understand through wisdom, and be wise through understanding. And so here, he is binding different parts of perception in order to create a union between wisdom and understanding, between Chachma and Bina. Chachma, the wisdom that is the cause of every detail that ever was and ever will be. This is the order, this is the reason, this is why it came out to be. This Chachma can explain everything that happened. Kulam b'Chachma sisa. And so that Chachma is called the Father. He's the Father of creation. The Father meaning he is the one that supplies. He brings the order, he brings the life, he brings the intelligence. He's the Chachma, he's the wisdom, he's the perfection that designed it just so that it will have a response to every situation, to every possible outcome. That's the Chachma. And that is revealed to us in our bodies. Our bodies will have a response to every situation. It will constantly create an answer to whatever will happen to it. It's trillions of cells working together, and together they are constantly answering to what's being presented. And this was all already in the power of the seed as it was prepared by the divine wisdom. In that seed was already all the instruction that's going to play out in this entire organism for its entire lifespan. And so all this instruction, this is the Chochmah Elyona. This is called Chochmah Eloh. And the one that's thinking inside, the one that pops into the being, this is called Chochmah Tachtona. This is called Chochmah Shloima. This is the Chochmah that's in the Malchus, in the sphere of the Malchus, which is all of manifestations. There's also intelligence. What's that intelligence? It dwells within humanity. And so that Chochmah is trying to align with the Chochmah Elyona, with the Father of creation. The closer that Chochmah comes to the Father of creation, the more it's aligned with the greater desire, with the greater will that created all. What's the greater will, the greater desire that created all? That's the Keser Elyon. That's the urge that's before the Chochmah, that's giving the Chochmah the juice and saying, like this I want. And to reach this Chochmah, Shlomo HaMelech says, Amarti echkamo, I thought I'm going to climb up all the way to the Chochmah. V'hir choyka mimeni, it's far from me. Omek mi yimtzenu, it's so deep, who can find it? Shlomo didn't say this because he read books. Well, there weren't yet that many books in the time of Shlomo. Books were short. Shlomo said it because he listened to the actual organs, because he observed creation, because he knew himself inside and out. He knew the being, and yet there was something about the being that didn't yet line up for him. He didn't yet fully understand the nature of how to liberate the being, how to direct it so that it never fails, so that it's only gaining power. So that the demons, the thoughts, the emotions that hurt the being can be completely eliminated. And so Hovein b'Chochmah, the Chochmah is the father, the Bina is the mother. The Bina is, how does that Chochmah apply here to this particular situation? The Chochmah is the general rules, the structure of how things work, of how it operates, of the information, of the design. The Bina is, okay, so what does it mean here? What does it mean now? In the human being, the Chochmah is represented by the brain that's holding all the information, all the memories. It's receiving all the input from the eyes, the ears, the nose and the mouth. Everything is coming into the brain. The brain is the Chochmah. The brain is the 32 paths that the nerves spread through the spine and feed the entire body and absorb information from the entire body. And then there's the Bina, the mother that's married to the father, and she dwells in the heart, and she understands everything that the brain is saying. Okay, so what does it mean to me? This is the process of understanding, is how do you apply it to this particular situation? All this information, what does it mean now? What do we do with it now? Where is the desire going to go as a result of this information? That's the Bina. And because the Bina is what makes things personal, is what makes things specific to that time and to that place, that's why from her, from this mother, come out the children, which are the attributes, which are the reactions to what has just been personalized. And so the Bina is called Eim Habonim, the mother of the children, the mother of the sons, the 6 sons and the 1 daughter. And so the Chochmah is the information, that's like the seed, all the instructions. The Bina is like the womb that develops the instructions and says, okay, I'm going to apply these instructions to an actual situation. And then come the midas, the sons, which are the reactions, the results of this situation being absorbed and digested by the bina. And so Havein b'chokhmah means see this interaction as it is happening between your heart and your brain. Observe and see the distinction between the information that you are feeding yourself, the information that you're being fed, and the reaction that you're having to this information. Recognize this distinction in order to understand reality, in order to return to the real nature of how you operate, in order to bring back your power to your being. Recognize this distinction between what is the chachma, which is what are the facts, what is the formula, what is the information that's coming in, and what is the bina, what is my reaction, my making it personal, my interpretation of that emotionally. What is playing that role in what's happening in my life? And so, Havein b'chokhmah, understand the wisdom, v'chacham b'bina, and be wise with understanding. Recognize the distinction between the parts. Recognize the relationship over here between the brain and the heart. And then he says, b'choin behem v'chakoir mehem. First, b'choin behem, meaning start testing them, start testing your theories. You say, you know that this is the reaction. See next time when similar information is presented to the heart, is it the same reaction or is there a different reaction? Is this really what's going on, or maybe I'm misunderstanding what's going on? Start becoming familiar with these processes inside of you. Start recognizing the cause and the result, and seeing the process of what causes things to happen and how do they happen. V'chakor mehem. Once you understand how they work, try to understand why do they work this way. Why did the kind designer design these patterns, design these functions to work this way? What is the good? What was it really designed to be? What is their best potential as far as I can understand at my level, so that I can get closer to the real desire, to the real design. And so, get to know the process and question, chakor mehem, try to understand from them. And these forces are also forces you can speak with, you can ask them. You can speak to Chokhmah, you can speak to Bina. These are live beings within you that cause what happens to happen. Only because my Chokhmah and my Bina are alive, I can speak to you now. If there would be any type of glitch between me and my Chokhmah and my Bina, then the words wouldn't come through. And so there might be additions after. This is where the information becomes inaccurate. And yet the Chokhmah and the Bina are alive and they're preparing and they're creating. It's just that within the process, before it gets to my mouth, additional layers of things might be added. And so you can, chakor mehem, you can ask them, you can speak to them, speak with them, understand them. They are parts of you, they can speak for you. Just like we have different parts that get activated when we act, and then we might question our action and say, what was my motivation to act this way? So who are we asking? We're asking whoever within you that made you act this way. Obviously you didn't know yet consciously, otherwise you wouldn't have to question yourself. The questioning means that now a force that was acting within you unconsciously is going to reveal itself and reveal its motivations. And so chakor mehem, get to know these processes, get to understand yourself and how you operate. V'hame dover al boryoy, and establish the thing accurately. Meaning, realize the nature of how your heart gets disturbed. What is the process that causes your heart to get disturbed? Because once your heart is disturbed, of course this process is now not going to work properly. Of course, the Chochmah and the Bina are going to now be in some type of a conflict, and the entire process is going to get derailed. It's not going to be the Holy Spirit any longer. And so, establish accurately, how does this process happen? What is going on inside of you? What is the root cause of things? And why do they happen? And so, for example, if we're going to observe why we're being hard on ourselves and why we're causing ourselves some type of harm, why we're talking down to the being, we might quickly find that we're not in the right mood. But then the question goes further. Why aren't we in the right mood? The being wasn't deficient. It wasn't designed to not work. It was designed to be proper and to feel proper. And so what type of a violation is happening to it or happened to it, and therefore it's in a bad mood? Hamidover al Barya, make sure that you understand accurately what is the nature of what you're suffering from, so that you can direct yourself at that problem in order to solve it. Observe your process, know what's hurting you, and understand accurately how it's hurting you and why it's hurting you. And the same for the other way. If something is giving you power, if something is helping you, if something is making you more you, Hamedover al Barya, understand accurately how it works and why it works and what does it do for you and why does it cause you to feel good and for how long do you feel good and does it cause you later not to feel good. Hamedover al Barya, understand accurately. This is the most important mechanism in the world. You really want to get this one right. And so, b'choin behem, first you're making sure you get it, all the different parts to understand what they are. V'chakor mehem, and you're questioning them and you're getting to know them and you're getting to know their ins and outs. V'hamedover al Barya, and you're making sure that you're establishing things accurately. And why? What is the goal of all this? V'hoshev Yetzira mechoinoi. Give back the throne to the one who it belongs to, please. May the slave step away from the microphone. There's an important creature here. He's a medaber. You better give him back his place, or there's going to be terrible consequences. Any abuse that happens inside, and the world outside is going to suffer that abuse. No one is clever enough to filter it out. It's going to come out somewhere. Some people it will come out in an obvious way, other people it's less obvious, but even just the lack of life that's not going to be as a result, that's also something the world is going to suffer. And so do your process, do it sincerely, and give the throne back to the one it belongs to. Just surrender to the real nature of things so that the being can be. Let the being go. And look into the Ravid now, to the parish, that's Meyuchas to the Ravid. He says here by Hovem b'chachma, understand with wisdom, le'omer chacham b'keser elyon, that you should try to become wise about the original urge, about the desire, about the crown that is the source of existence, the highest sphere. So he didn't say that. Why? We're not even allowed to try to think about it, because any attempt is going to result in us understanding less, not more. When we try to do something that is beyond our capacity, we reduce our ability to perceive. Just like when someone physically tries to lift weight that is too heavy for them, after that, even weight that they could lift before, they will not be able to lift, because they went to something they couldn't, and that took all their strength, that took away all their power. And so don't try to become wise about the urge, because there is no ability to go there. Hen ba'olam, hen b'shona, hen b'nefesh, not in space, not in time, and not in consciousness. Shenema b'mifla mufchal tidrish. By what is wondrous to you, by what is beyond perception, don't try to perceive. And this is what the philosophers did, is they went to the place that's beyond perception, and that's where they tried to perceive. And therefore, what is possible to perceive, they couldn't perceive either. They couldn't gain access to the wisdom that is so obvious, that is not just in front of you, it's us ourselves. This is the wisdom. We are the wisdom. And they totally missed the wisdom, trying to philosophize about things that they have no access to, that are not understandable, that are not accessible to the human mind. You can speak about what goes on from one edge of the heavens to the other edge of the heavens, which means creation. You can't ask what is above, what is below, what is before, and what is after. This is what the philosophers call creator. You can't ask about creator. You can ask about creation. But creation is creator. Creation is the will of the creator. That's the only one it can be attributed to. And therefore, this is the language of the creator, and how we get close to him, and how we please him, and how we bring glory to his name. Everything that came forth from creator is representative of creator. By its very nature, it can never be any different. Understand in wisdom the secret of the soul. We know that the brain is separated into three different parts. המוקדם שקרוב למצח היא בתכלס הרקס, איבו יזדמו כל הדבורים, איבו יירו החלומס. So he divides the brain into three parts. I don't know how this matches the scientific explanations today, but in general, I think over there we also have three parts, which is the cortex, what we have that's most specific to the human. Then we have the mammalian brain and the reptilian brain. And they have their own functions, but they're one within each other. Here he's talking about three different sections of the brain. Whatever it might be physically, it could be he doesn't even mean it physically. He's just talking about the functions of it. And so he says, but he speaks about the space that's closest to the forehead. This would be the cortex. And he says, that's the place of the imagination and the dreams. This is like the esoteric language that the soul interprets information into physiological reactions, into blood and into organs. And so there's some type of a metaphor that the soul uses in order to interpret all these interpretations, and this is what forms the dreams. The middle brain, also this here, the middle one is of a higher level. It's the intelligence. So the one close to the forehead is the imagination, and the one in the middle is the intelligence. This is the force that can know wisdom, that can understand the importance of words over other words, and ideas over other ideas, and the difference between reality and fiction, the difference between the possible and the impossible, and the nature of existence. Also, all types of work, all type of specialties, a person that over the time of his life, becomes specialized in a specific type of work. All this comes from the intelligent brain, and it gets ingrained into the imagination, so that it knows how to repeat it. The back of the head, that's where all the memories go in to get saved, to get stored. And so these are, for the most part, we're talking about functions of brain: imagination, intelligence, and memory. And they all have their place, they all have their center in the brain of how they operate. V'racha nafshi, and the spirit of soul, the spirit that is alive in the blood, asher ben kruma hamoach, that lives between the different sheets of the brain, hu hanoisen hadimya v'hamachshava. He is the one that is the cause of whatever is being drawn and whatever is being thought. What's the intelligence and the imagination and the memory going to bring up? What are they going to write? That depends on this force, on this power that is beyond space and beyond time, and yet resides somehow within our body. And from there, it animates all these different functions of the brain in order to together create a perception. The perception is a result of this force animating trillions of cells in the brain, and together to bring forth a perception so that we can experience it. And this is happening constantly. This is happening faster than we think. That's why it's a flawless experience. We might go through an entire lifetime and not even realize that it's happening. And so this spirit that resides within the oxygen that's within the blood, that goes up to the brain, that's over there in the area where the life force is being directed, this spirit is what gives shape and form to everything that happens in the experience. V'da, and know, ki hakoach hazeh, that this force, know that this force, who sibel l'chol ha'metzias asher b'guf, he is the reason for everything that exists within the body. Be'erech shekeser el nisibes metzias kol ha'metzias. The same way that the Keser Elyon, the highest sphere, is the source of all existence, and everything that's within existence was already somehow included in that urge, in that desire, in that what gave the wisdom, the direction in order to create everything. And so the same way, in this spirit that is within the brain, that is directing the entire being, there is included everything that's going to happen within this being. Everything that's going to come out, every thought, every feeling, every speech, every action, every function within an organ, every shift, every instruction, it's all somehow getting direction from this spirit that resides within the brain. And within that spirit, within that ruach, within that being that's at the root of the being, over there is the intelligence, over there is the understanding, meaning when the heart sends its signals of understanding, where does it send it? It sends it to that place in the brain. And the das is the experience, is the knowledge that we have because we are. That das is being projected by this spirit, by this force, by this power that's powering up our brains. V'ariyah v'ashmiya v'arech v'atam v'amishish v'rotzoin. Vision, sound, smell, taste, and touch, they're all reporting directly to this place, to this source, to this being to this force, to this spirit. And here they're counted in order according to the spheres. So we had the Chochmah, the Bina, and the Das. And then we have vision, Chesed, sound, Gvura, Reach, Tiferes, Tam, Netzach, taste, and touch, Hod. So these are the 5 spheres. And what's the next one? All these are emanations of this force, emanations of the Ruach, of the spirit that resides within the brain. And the next one, which represents Yesod, is Rotzon, will, desire. Based on everything that happened till now, based on the wisdom, the understanding, the experience, the vision, the sound, the smell, the taste, the touch, there is now desire that's going to pass to the being. This desire, this Ratzon, all this reports straight to the being, is dependent on this being. This being is going to decide. This spirit that's living within the brain, between the sheets, is going to decide what is the reaction to all this. What's the will, what's the desire based on all this that's going to result from the input, from the process that's just taking place. So it says, Shem etam lemetoch she'einoi musik she'en tesha chal sholem kach nemer esav lo tesha. So because we can't perceive it, I don't know how this is connected to what he just said, but somehow he finds himself here speaking about the 9 and not 10. So he says the one that, the highest one, the Keter, the intelligence, because we can't perceive it, you would think maybe we don't count it, that's 9 and not 10. So if you don't count the intelligence itself, which would be the 11th, but you count all the different forms that it dressed up in, and that's the 10. And even though the first dress is not perceivable, which is the Keter, which is the crown, it's not yet perceivable because it doesn't have enough definition, still we count it, and we don't count just 9. Yeah, I don't know about how this became like that, but that's fine also. Then it says, "Hovem b'chachma v'leomer chacham b'seichel, fi shaseichel mivde v'lo yitzi b'shim koch mikoch sageshem, amnam kol koch sagashma mitzom b'nefesh, kulam yitzar yiter mas yosem b'chachma." So again, we didn't say become wise with the intelligence, because the intelligence is beyond perception, so we can't really gain access to that. But all the physical things that exist also exist on the soul level. And before they existed on the soul level, they were already drawn on the level of wisdom. The Chachma drew all these things before they came out into manifestation. And so everything, Kulam b'chachma osisa, like we said, everything comes through the intelligence and dresses up in wisdom. Wisdom meaning the order of the way things are in this world. And this is the Tzelem Elohim, this is the form of these forces, how they come into each situation, into each manifestation, into each place where they dress up. And they all receive their instruction from that same place. So b'choin behem, it says, figure out from them. Perish yeshcho livchoin, you have to realize, k'ara'ir v'ashmir v'reach v'tam v'mishish v'rotzen, the sight and the sound and the smell and the taste and the touch and the desire, even though they're separate actions, they're separate forms of being, they all come forth, they all need interpretation from the level of wisdom and understanding before they receive their form. And so also your vision gets interpreted by your wisdom and understanding. Also your sight, also the sound that you hear, like right now, is getting interpreted by the wisdom and the understanding. Everything is going through these, and it all reports back to that one place. So even though they seem like separate functions, even though they seem like they are something separate, but really there's one being that is through all of them becoming and realizing and learning to interpret its environment, becoming more aware of its true nature. They all report to that same being becomes through them. So they all come through the level of wisdom and understanding. And they themselves come forth from the higher force. There is one force. So everything that comes forth from that one force. And so because they all come forth from the same force, so when a person that, for example, is dreaming, he's going to use things that he saw and things that he heard and things that come in from all the different sources, and he's going to have an experience, he's going to create for himself an experience from all these different places, because it's all one being, it's all one force at the root of all these forces. Even though all these forces come out into separate organs, they all have their own tools in order to do their function. The vision has the eyes and the sound has the ears. So you won't find that the eye can hear or the ear can see. And so it might seem to you that because they have separate parts, separate organs, that they are separate beings. So it's not because the force that sees can't hear. The force that sees hears, but the body can only contain instructions for one function, and so the body is where the tools are being separated and distinct. The different organs of the body are because this is the nature of the physical, because we're trying to do something spiritual in the physical. But the same force that sees in the eyes, he's the one that hears. But in order to do so in the physical world, he has separate tools to do his different functions. So that the koach haposhet, the simple force, he lives in all of these organs. But mitzad the kelim, mitzad the organs themselves, the body parts, they are distinct for each function. So because it's the same being, so sometimes we can have an expression that says, he saw the smell, or they saw the sound. This is because it's the same being, and this can sometimes happen in the brain. On certain experiences, we can see sounds, or hear smells, or the mind has that ability in the place where the unity begins, before it gets separated into its functions, we can mix the senses and get an experience that combines different senses. Everything that happens in you, you have to return it to the source, which is this force, which is this power that made it be so, that is the one that's alive, and understand why, what is the will, what is the desire within this being, within this force, within this spirit, to create such a manifestation, to create such such an event, to create such a thought, to create such an emotion? What is it really saying? What is really driving it? What is at the root of what's taking place? And this is in order to discover the original nature. The original nature, there is the desire of the one who made it. So from your own experience, you'll be able to realize how the Creator is, from His unity, sending force, sending power to all the different entities, to all the different angels, to all the different beings. You have a live demonstration of that process. What's happening inside of you is a demonstration of the process of how the Creator, who is one, becomes dressed up in the many, but the many are not separate, the many are also one. And the revelation of this, the realization, the awareness of the one, that He is the one within all the parts, this is what returns the owner to the throne. This is what returns the Creator. To the extent that we can say that the Creator has a desire for what is happening here, that desire gets fulfilled, that desire gets realized when we as individuals return the owner to the throne, return the one on top of the many, return the original desire that created us to be in charge of our manifestation. And this is the will, this is what we are constantly thriving for. This is what we say when we say Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad, is that we realize that just like within ourselves there is one that came out into many vessels and presents himself as many, the same way in all of creation there is one that presents himself as many. And just like within our individual experience, if these many learn to cooperate, then the one can be the one. When the many don't cooperate, the one doesn't have room to be the one. So too in the greater existence, when the many will cooperate, the one will be the one. And this is what we await in the redemption, is that the unity shall be present within all its parts. And then, V'hoya Hashem lemelech al kol haaretz, the one, the being that is within all beings is going to be one on the entire earth. B'yom hahu yeh Hashem echad u'shmo echad. On that day, the one will be the one, and the way that He is known will be one. He is one, like He always was and always will be, but in all that He is, they will know that He is one. They will understand the nature of His oneness. This is what we look forward to. May it happen now.